Mrs. Morris and the Ghost by Traci Wilton.
Chapter 9. Charlene woke up Tuesday morning with a heavy weight on her chest and milk breath in her face. She cracked open one eye to meet two round golden discs staring at her. Whiskers twitching, the Persian purred like a well-oiled machine. "What are you doing?" she demanded with less heat than she'd intended. They'd formed a truce, of sorts. This invasion of her personal space was new. His silver tail flipped behind him, and the cat was so big he stretched the length of her torso. "Fine," Charlene sighed, and brought her hand from beneath her down comforter to scratch behind his silky ear. "But don't get used to this." The cat rumbled louder and gave a languid blink. After another minute, Charlene regretfully left the warmth of her bed and dragged herself to the kitchen for coffee. No Jack. The cat trailed behind her. "Jack!" Nothing. She made her coffee and opened her laptop at the kitchen table, writing down Shauna's phone number. 8 in the morning was probably too early to call. The art gallery downtown was open from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. Next, she typed in Amelia Bransford, and a slender, attractive woman with brown hair and brown eyes popped up. She'd won an award for her pharmaceutical research and worked at Biomed, a company about half an hour away in Boston. Before she could change her mind, Charlene sent her an email asking her to get in touch in regard to Jack Strathmore. She doubted the woman would call, but she was curious about how Amelia viewed their college breakup. And was she still in contact with Shauna? Charlene made a bagel with cream cheese for breakfast, then showered and prepared for her day. In addition to finding out how old those knobs were, she wanted just the right mirror for over the fireplace. She called Shauna at 9 and was directed to voicemail. Her message was a cheerful greeting that matched her bright smile. Not very evil sounding, Charlene hated to admit. Charlene also called Ernie. Why wouldn't he call her back? She left a specific message about whether or not he'd sold Jack and Theo property, just in case he was avoiding her. Worried, for good reason, she'd want to sue him over the fact her house was haunted. "Okay, Jack, I'm leaving." A cold rush of air swirled around her, and suddenly he was there in front of her, this time dressed in jeans and a fitted gray t-shirt with Flint's Vineyard on the front. "Are you wearing that t-shirt for me?" The look on his face when he'd discovered his wine gone had been priceless. "Where are you going?" he asked. Charlene chuckled at his disgruntled tone. "I'm sorry I can't take you with me, but I have some errands to run." She'd transferred the knobs to a plastic tub. The knobs were 3 inches in diameter, heavy and solid. She'd carefully wiped the top layer of grime from them to discover a dark brown wood, intricately carved. One had a dent in the edge that seemed more recent than the other knob's nicks. "Wish me luck with these." "Luck. I'm sorry I questioned you about the boxes. I'm surprised they hadn't been hauled out to the dump." Charlene sighed. If these are worth money, then I'm glad that Shauna just wanted out so fast. "Those wouldn't have been her thing." "Jack, I was wondering if you could tell me a little more about Parker." "You think he killed me now?" He laughed. "If he killed anybody, it would be Shauna." If only, she thought. Jack tugged on his chin. "Parker is not the most likable guy. Rough around the edges. Doesn't talk much. But he's one of the best skilled laborers I've ever come across." She had to agree, considering the quality of work she'd seen for herself. Maybe she could get him to do a Charlene's bed and breakfast sign for out front. Something classic. "Seems I'm going to need more than light bulbs changed. Looks like you blew the circuit with your energy flare last night." "Sorry about that. Wish I could do it for you." Jack gave her a guilty look. "Me too. It would save on labor costs. Oh, and don't freak out if you see someone painting the front porch. Nick should be here around 1. I will try to be back, but no promises." She made a note to pick up cash to pay the painter while she was out. "I called Shauna, but had to leave a message." Jack looked at the clock on the stove and whistled. "She doesn't get up before noon." Noon? What time does she go to bed? It was a rhetorical question, and she didn't expect an answer. She decided not to tell Jack that she'd emailed Amelia, since he seemed so reluctant for her to question the women in his circle. Can you recommend an antique store? I'm looking for a mirror for over the fireplace, and I'd like to replace the telescope on the widow's walk. Jack shimmered, but then gave her a half smile that warmed her insides. That was my favorite thing about this old house. Shauna and I would sit for hours looking at the stars, in the early days, before our relationship went south. Now I don't need a telescope to see far away. He gave a heavy sigh. Did Amelia like astronomy too? Yes. When we were kids, we'd go down to the beach and study the stars. Knew almost every constellation in the galaxy. Did you know there's 88 of them? No way! I thought there was only half a dozen or so, Charlene grinned. She must have been super smart, and you two probably had a lot in common. More than you and Shauna, I'd think. I wasn't looking for things in common when I met Shauna. I was kind of starstruck. She was stunning, and every guy wanted to date her. Funny, she was Amelia's roommate, and yet she wanted to date me. Not so funny. I think she took you away from Amelia on purpose. Shauna was probably jealous of her family background, while she was shifted from home to home. You've got a point. She looked at him for a long moment. Perhaps if she understood him as a boy, she'd see the man he became. Are your parents still alive, Jack? If he was 47, his parents could be in their 70s or 80s. No. His voice turned sad. They died in a sailing accident right after I graduated college. They never got to see me with my own thriving medical practice. Did you always want to be a doctor? He grimaced. God forbid that I mar the Strathmore name by not becoming a doctor. My other option was a lawyer. Oh. Charlene couldn't help herself for reaching towards Jack to offer him a hug. She put her hand on his shoulder, and there was some resistance before it slipped through the intangible fabric of his t-shirt. That is so sad. Jack's mood changed with a laugh. I felt your hand. Just for a sec. Can you do it again? No, it was creepy. She brought her hand to her chest to calm her racing heart. Her skin tingled. For all that Jack was attractive and had earned her compassion, she needed to remember that he was otherworldly. Nice. He ruffled the hair at his nape. I get to be creepy. That doesn't do much for a guy's self-esteem. You're fine, Jack. You have enough confidence for 10 people. Her laptop dinged, signaling an incoming email. Turning it toward her, she saw that Amelia had answered, leaving her phone number and asking for Charlene to get in touch. She quickly closed the laptop, not wanting Jack to see. She'd call Amelia once she got into the car to drive to town. Not that it did me any good. He leaned against the door leading down to the wine cellar. You are in a mood today, aren't you? Charlene asked, digging her keys from her tote bag. I want to help you. You are! Not really. Charlene couldn't imagine being stuck in one place like he'd been for 3 years. Many had said they'd had parties all the time. I tell you what, let's have a pre-opening party for the locals in town. That gives us 2 weeks to plan something fun. If you can't go out to the world, I will bring the world to you. Jack's form solidified. Standing tall, he did a 2-step across the kitchen floor. I like the idea of a party. Want to dance? She glanced around the kitchen, and since nobody else was around, she held out her arms and swayed. Jack stepped in, putting his hands close to hers, mimicking her movements. Close, but not touching. He snapped his fingers and the radio switched on. Jack hummed along to a popular romantic ballad. So you like to dance? She shuffled her feet. His face lit up. Shauna and I knew how to dance. He bowed and held out his hand. His smile made the idea of a party worthwhile, but she had to get going. You can show me your moves when I get back. If Nick does a good job on the porch, I might have him repaint the widow's walk. The railing should be fresh and match. Hurry back. I'll miss you when you are gone. If you'd stop disappearing when I ask a tough question, don't think I haven't noticed a pattern." She smiled to take the sting out of her words. "It's hard to get answers that way. I'm still waiting to hear back from Ernie about whether or not Theo owns the property you bought together. I have to meet him too." "Theo can be very charming. Don't you get fooled by him, Charlene." "Like that's going to happen," she said cheerfully, feeling as if they were getting a few steps closer to answers. "I'll catch you later." Charlene picked up her tote bag and the box with the knobs and headed out the door. The fall morning was crisp and beautiful. The leaves shimmered with a touch of frost. She still pegged Shauna for the murderer, but her husband was benefiting financially from Jack's death just as much, perhaps more. She would call Shauna again at 11 and keep calling just to get the witch out of bed. Jumping into the driver's seat of her Pilot, Charlene drove to the edge of the property and called Amelia back. After the first ring, Amelia answered. "Hello, this is Amelia. You're calling about Jack Strathmore? What do you want to know? The poor man has been gone for 3 years. Hi, I'm Charlene Morris, and I bought his old house." "And?" She imagined that the scientist was busy at work and doubted that a woman of her education would believe in ghosts. "You can tell me this is none of my business," she hedged. "But I was going through some of Jack's old things and found a picture of you both from your college days." "You did? It would have to have been from the first year. I transferred after that." Jack hadn't mentioned that part. Charlene cleared her throat. "Oh, well, I also saw that he'd married Shauna something. Kook," Amelia supplied in a bitter tune. "Yes, she was my roommate. Jack and I were actually dating, but she swooped in and snagged my man right beneath my nose." "Oh no." "Jack and I were close. We growed up together. Our families have a history in Salem. Then Shauna stepped in. I didn't see it coming. She wasn't his type." "Are you still in touch with Shauna?" "If she was drowning, I'd toss her an anchor." Charlene bit her lip to keep from laughing in surprise. So Jack hadn't understood how much he'd hurt Amelia by breaking up with her for Shauna. "I understand. From his pictures, I could see he was a very handsome man." "Yes, he was. But you still haven't explained why you called." Unable to tell her the truth, Charlene managed, "I am compiling a history on the house. Thought I might eventually put a pamphlet in each room for the guests. They might be interested in learning about the people who live there." "History," Amelia scoffed. "Salem is all about that. So much time has been wasted on trying to reconstruct what was. If you're really interested, you should go dig through the archives in Old Salem Hall." "I'm more interested in my bed and breakfast right now. But where is Old Salem Hall? I might stop by. I'm sure my guests will love all the juicy details of the fascinating history. And maybe she could find out more about the Strathmores. Jack in particular." "Downtown, near the wharf. My mother is still a member of the Ladies of Salem, Laura Bransford. I'm sure she could talk your ear off. But I've got to go." "Thank you so much." Amelia had just confirmed what she'd already guessed. But it still begged the question. If Amelia had wanted to hurt Jack after he broke up with her, why would she wait so long?